We have this way here. Look at basically the 6 stages.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
First stage for everyone, what do you think it is? Any idea? Where's most of you? I kind of just talked about this in that first stage. They have the slave mindset. Corporations, everybody's basically putting the same message to keep you in this place and how tough it is, whatever it is. They're keeping you what? Sedated, which also could be what? Asleep. Most people, they come in here, they come into us, and what we do here, they're asleep. They're more focused on sports scores, right? And fantasy football and everything else than they are about their own numbers, their own metrics, their own pieces of stuff in their life. Most are asleep and sedated in everything they do, and they're doing what? They're just going away, right? Going along with the flow of life. Not realizing that the decisions they make, the things they do, can control the way they win or not win, right? Second phase of this, we're talking about going through this, is awakening. Awakening, what do you think that means? You start to realize about these things are different, and guess what? I had this down in my notes, is you start realizing there could be something different in what there currently is. For you, your family, and your future generations after you. There's always that one that comes along in a lineage, and guess what they do? They change it forever. Forever and ever and ever. And so your goal is to be that one. For sure. Number 3, activation. What do you think that means?
Where you set the plan in motion.
This is where you put the plan in motion, the rubber starts hitting the road. I like the way you worded that. This is where you put the plan in motion. And all of us are in different places based on where we're at overall in that scenario. Overall. Number 4, application. What do you think that means? Application. This is where I start to apply the skill sets that are needed to get the results I want. This is where I start applying the skill sets to change the direction of the ship so that now I can get to where I want to go. Before, I was in this sailboat just drifting, not understanding how to sail the boat. But now I figured out how to understand, look, I do have some sails in my boat, right? I have the sail, understand what that is. Understand that, hey, look, I put my sails up, and now I start figuring out, all right, here's how I start using the wind and the things around me for me to be able to navigate going where I want to go in terms of that. But most people around you and your friends, your relatives, at least mine, most of them are asleep at the wheel, just drifting around meaninglessly in life, being distracted by every new thing that comes out. Versus, right, having a life of meaningful specifics that get them where they want to go. 5th piece here. Some of you guys are getting to this place here and work with this. 5th place is acceleration. I have 3 or 4 of you, this place of acceleration. What do you think that means? Got my foot on the gas, now I'll start doing some cool shit. Like what? Making crap to the money and doing what with the money? Buying stuff, leveraging it. Making investments in things that leverage the money. And all of a sudden now I can start doing what? Having my money work for me. And so by simply investing in something, I can get a return on that without me having to actually be involved. And now I start seeing things a lot different in life. And guess what happens to my net worth? Starts growing much faster. But I can't get to this point unless I master the first 4 before that. And the last one is the hardest one to get to, is Ascendance. What do you think that means? I like the realm. You're in a new state of being here. This is the part where, guess what? You start to enjoy life. Not only do you have money, you have these other 3 parts of your life that are actually working for you. I've ascended outside of that slave world. Even Andrew Tate calls it what? The matrix, right? You've ascended outside of that matrix where you're locked in, and all of a sudden you start seeing life differently, and all of a sudden those puzzle pieces that look so crazy and different and foreign, all of a sudden they start making sense. Because you get enough space from the scarcity, you can start looking and reading, understanding the things around you. And so it's very, very important to understand. So I'm talking about the asleep phase. Number one, you cannot change your life if you are asleep. If I'm ignorant to it, right? Most people are asleep just drifting based on that, going through the motions, what they're doing, right? Looking forward to the next Friday night, looking forward to the next time. Whatever it is, they're just looking to that next stage to sedate from what's really happening, because sometimes it's not as painful just to stay asleep and just stay sedated. Until what happens with life, all of a sudden life comes along, slaps you across with something that happened like sickness, or a rim gets busted, or a flat tire, all this stuff, and all of a sudden everything gets exposed and it bleeds the other parts of life, and that's where the pain and misery comes in. Super important piece to understand there, right? There's a time that you were completely unaware it's even possible to do anything different than what you experienced. And so you get to this point where you recognize the man or woman you are, you're hunting down that's currently asleep at the level, and you want to get to this place where you become the king or queen, you want to build the kingdom. And so part of what I want to do here with you guys, most people when they come in, is understand that most people are asleep, most are just drifting, and I want to turn you from this wandering generality to a meaningful specific. Right? A wandering generality to a meaningful specific. What do you think that means? I want you to wake up and believe, hey, look, life can be different than what it always has been. For me, for my parents, for everything else. Look at the reason there's generational poverty. All becomes the way you think based on the way you are programmed by those who raised you. Myself included. Look back at my dad. My dad had a lot of victim language about how things are, things were, and all of a sudden they just kept portraying about how things were difficult, and people were evil, and people were doing this, and money's bad, all this other shit, right? Which weren't necessarily true. He just happened to come to the part where he was actually a king. And so for me, my job is to work on that daily, because I'm going to go through this, and this is what that book, Think and Grow Rich, talks about the most. And it goes through, remember the part, if you guys remember, at least the Law of Success, it goes to this park. Remember the part of the book where they go to the park? Then Napoleon Hill. And he hands out cigarettes. No, he goes to the park, hands out cigarettes. Maybe it's in the first part, the Law of Success, which is the first version of the book. But he goes to and he hands out cigarettes, and he talks to the homeless people in the park. And this is back in the 30s. And when he asked them what they were in their situation for, what did they tell him? What do you think they told him? All victim language. Right? They can't catch a break. Life's too tough. The world's against them. Right? That everything's against them. They can't get ahead in life. All these things are just the way they think. And the victim language they had is ultimately what kept them held down the way they were. And so from now, I want you guys to understand the first way to get out of sleep is, number one, I just own my shit. I stand in that place of truth. And so that moves to that second phase for us, which is awakening. And that second part of awakening, what do you think that is? Some of you guys use it. But the word of awakening I want you to understand and take into is self-awareness. Now you have no excuse not to be able to get better and break that curse or break that version. My parents and my dad used to talk about the curse that my family had. Because my grandfather had a lot of money, lost a lot of the money, lost all the money. They had a plane, they had a farm, they had all this stuff, and all of a sudden lost it all. They talked about this curse. And the more he talked about it, the more he just fulfilled it. Right? Versus actually just breaking it. 100%, right? And the problem was he actually believed it. Right? So the self-awareness is when your mind begins to connect the possibility that life itself could be something different than what it currently is. Now, for most people, there's one reason that they actually wake up. My job is hopefully you don't get to that, but most people only awake through two things. Trauma and drama. Trauma and drama. What do you think that means? Something terrible happens to them, they finally make a change. They get sick, something happens where they're forced to actually do things, or they finally just get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so, like you mentioned, their pain threshold gets below the part where they actually make a change. They're tired of living the way they were, paycheck to paycheck. They're tired of living this place of ups and downs. They're tired of getting where they're ahead, and all of a sudden they go back down. Most people in real estate get to this place where they make some money, they spend the money, go back to zero, and they ride that roller coaster of life and roller coaster of real estate, and ultimately you're just going to ultimately have to get tired before you change it. And so I want you guys to understand that overall it's very important. And so the thing here is our effort at every stage inside the game, right, is recognizing where you're asleep at and activate them by design to awaken awareness of what it could be. And this can be in what? all 4 areas of life. Your body, your balance, your being, and your business. Because most people you know, and even a lot of people I know, that have a lot of money, guess what the rest of their life is? It's shit. Multiple divorces, they don't have a relationship with their kids, they're out of shape, they're unhealthy, because they sacrifice everything for business versus understanding that, hey, look, instead of being a one-dimensional douche, I can have 4 areas of my life that actually work. It's very hard. Right? But most people have only money, they kind of do operate like that. And so what we want here is you to have power in all 4 areas in that piece. Third piece, activation. What do you think this part is? Putting together a plan. It's twofold. Number 1, you have to get your you have to get your mind aligned. Which I also consider focus. My mind aligned with what? This new place and this new opportunity of where I'm going. This new place I can go in life, this new place I can be. And here's the thing, no matter where you are, you're in a level of asleep. And you have this new level of awakening, right? What keeps me at the level I'm at? Because I'm asleep at the level I've hit already. Thinking I actually made it, but when you get around somebody who's even made it before you, guess what you realize? You ain't there yet. I think I told you that story. I told my buddy Mike before. I said, man, you feel like you actually got some money until you get around people who really have money. And they spend $20,000 on a bottle of champagne and don't think about it. Right? Crazy stuff. And so you start thinking about like, hey, look, where am I asleep in my life right now? And I want to move this stuff and make sure I make that adjustment. So the first stage is what? Get my mind aligned. Second piece is accessing, learning, and improving my skill sets of execution. Accessing, learning, and improving my what? Key word is what? Skill sets of execution. Now I want you guys to understand, I'm just setting a framework for us to start working on the next couple weeks. I'm giving you guys the roadmap to say, look, here's where I'm at. Where am I on this map? Because I want to give you guys and set the stage for what we're going to start working on. The skill test of execution, guess what? That's the hardest part. Why? Just because I wake you up and you understand, look, there's more to life and there's more to me and more that I can be in terms of my results, doesn't mean people are actually willing to do the work. For example, I taught on Jordan Belfort for 3 weeks. I asked everybody last week who watched Jordan Belfort, and guess who raised their hand? Nobody. That's a difference, right, of understanding the skill set of execution. Understanding the value of it. And so there's levels to this piece too in every single part of the game that makes a big difference. And so the piece here is what's being activated in terms of the skill set of execution. And I wrote in here, awareness to activation is a transition from recognizing that something is and that something new could be. It's actually activating the mindsets required to expand. Okay? Fourth piece, application. What do you think it is? One main thing. What did you say? Doing it, which is also measured in what? What do we talk about here all the time? Results. This is where I actually got to focus on one thing, which is getting results. Which would be measurable results, which are results I can measure daily, weekly, monthly, and I actually apply the shit I know. Which is very, very important for me to understand here. The application games about getting results not in theory or pontification, but results that legitimately exist inside your life and are driven by tangible and measurable evidence that what you've been doing is working. Because here's the deal, I could be doing shit and guess what? It's not working. And so I want to be obsessed with measuring my results so I can know what's working and what's not working for me to move through that and make sure I can move through that piece. Fifth piece, acceleration. One main thing I want to do here. I want to quicken the results. I want to double down quickly. I don't want to be. Here's what happens. Most people get this application piece. They get some money. And what do you think happens? They take their foot off the gas. And they ride that roller coaster in the circle or the cul-de-sac, and they loop and they loop and they loop, versus how do I accelerate and double down? How do I get more obsessed with learning? How do I read more books quicker? How do I get to that next version of myself? And I look back, my biggest weakness is I made some money, did really well in real estate, right? Came ranked on the top of the country as a team, and all of a sudden I quit really learning about the next level. I just became obsessed with sales instead of learning about massive investment. And how to leverage what I have into tens and multiples and tens and multiples. In hindsight, I bought everything in 2010, 11, 12, probably be worth 70, 80 million. Why? Because things grow and things grow and things grow, and that's what makes a big difference. And so here's the deal. How do I quicken results? How do I get that part where it gets to be bigger and better in that scenario? And you begin to recognize what's not working slowly, you start to realize what's not working, and you start to transform them, eradicate them, or eliminate them. So the key is eliminate. It's not working. That would be also known as cutting dead weight. What should I do in my life that's holding me back overall? Last one's ascension, right? Which means what? Go up to elevate, increase one's state of being, which is aka the next level of you, right? That's when you start working on the kingdom stuff overall. That's the key part there of those 6 things. So what are the 6 things again? Sleep. Yep. Asleep, awakening, activation, application, acceleration, and ascendance. Okay? It's your roadmap to go back for it.